There was someone who said years ago that, we can live, this song, I love it, that a living hope. I think it was Billy Graham who said years ago that man can live, a month or so, maybe even longer without food, but about, 10 or 15 days without water, but not 1 second without hope. You need hope. And Jesus is our living hope. And that's what we want to talk to you about all month long. As Archie said earlier, we really want you to mark your calendars now. January 26th is a vital day in the life of the Point Church. And if this is where you think you fit in, where you think you belong, where this is family for you, maybe you're here this morning and you don't even have a home church yet, but I want to hear this. All month long, we're going to be talking about vision, and we're going to be talking about hope and life purpose, and what does that mean for you individually? What does that mean for us corporately? And as he said, maybe the first time ever, we're going to give you a vision, a focus, a look at what the entire year will look like. Not that we're just going to come to church every Sunday, but why are we gathering on Sunday? Why are we doing community small groups? Why are we transforming our relationships? What's the purpose behind that? And we're going to share all that with you, and it's going to take us all month leading to January the 26th. That's a Sunday. Again, you just can't miss January 26th. If you have vacation plans, other than the fact that you may have already paid for it, see if you can get a refund. I don't know. But get here on January the 26th. And every week you're going to hear something a little bit different as we propel toward that vision. As a matter of fact, next Sunday, we're going to start with 21 days of prayer. And that prayer is going to involve every one of us. You're going to get guides, and we're going to give you a guide of what to pray for, how to pray, every single day for 21 days. And then on Wednesday, starting the 15th of January at 6:30 a.m., every Wednesday over the latter part of January, we're going to meet here. If you can do it, if your schedule will prevail, meet here at 6:30 a.m. to pray together corporately to start that day. And then we're going to go and give you these guides and then finish the whole 21 days of prayer with a night of worship. And it's going to be a phenomenal, phenomenal time. So we're going to give you more and more as we go. Keep your eyes open to our website. Keep your eyes open to the various emails. We'll look at your spam. Make sure you're catching everything and all the information that you can get. However, that's a mouthful already, isn't it? Today, we're going to start with this question: what would it take? What would it take for you to really change your life? I mean, we know that there's information. I mean, I'm talking a little bit, my notes are on an iPad, and most of us in here have iPhones or smartphones, whether they be Apple or whatever brand it might be that you're on. We have all this information, but not a whole lot of transformation. Because I think we've gotten to become information overloaded. And I'm not even sure anymore, as the talk has gone into our nation and various parts of the world, we're not even sure anymore what is true when the information gets to us. So how do we take all this information and turn it into transformation? What will it take for your life to really change? I mean, what will it take for you to stop saying you want to do it and start doing it? What will that take? What will it take for every single person sitting in this room and listening to me online, in the family viewing room, wherever you might be hearing the sound of my voice, to realize that you have truly been created by God? You've been breathed out of the mouth and the soul and the breath of the living God who created the entire universe, and in that breath, you have a life purpose. And your life purpose isn't to just find a job so that you can pay the bills. That's not your purpose. In other words, you have a destiny. And your destiny is here on this earth. We all have a destination that we're going to go to in eternity. But that's not your destiny. Your destiny is the mission that God breathed inside of you. So how do you find that? How do you get it? What will it take for you to discover this purpose? So today, I want to tell the story a little bit. I don't have but just a few moments, and so I can get lost in this, because this is what I live and breathe for, is passion and purpose and mission personally, for me, is what I've lived my entire life to do, and I've shifted. My wife and my children, we've shifted many times in our lives, not to follow and chase money, but to follow and chase mission upon what God has called us to do in life. And so I want to tell a story today that you might be somewhat familiar with out of the book of Exodus. So if you have a device or a Bible, or you can look on the screens, I'm just going to share a little bit of scripture in Exodus chapter 3 about someone that you may be familiar with, you may not be, but it's Moses. Most of us have heard that name before. Most of us have probably watched Charlton Heston portray Moses in the Ten Commandments. That's a very old movie. So we see and we know and we're familiar with a little bit of what Moses did and how he came about. So let's get into this. But this is the story of Moses. This is sort of after he fled from Egypt because he killed somebody. And in Moses' mind, that murder ended his mission. And there's a lot behind all of that and how he superseded the very plan of God and thinking that these people would understand. There's a lot behind all that. But he's in the backside of the desert. He's in the wilderness, thinking that he's lost his mission. He's lost his life. And he's just kind of tending the flock. And in verse 1 it says, Moses was tending the flock, didn't even belong to him, of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. And he led this flock to the west side, which is the far side of the wilderness. And he came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Now, he wasn't thinking about God. I want you to really differentiate this. He was just doing his job. He was just in the desert tending sheep. There's no indication that Moses was thinking of God here. Matter of fact, the scriptures calling this the mountain of God because it's written afterwards. This received its name because of who Moses became after this moment. This wasn't like he was tending the sheep and going to church. He was just doing a mundane job in the wilderness thinking this is life. And then verse 2 continues, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him. Appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, and this is the part I want you to highlight on your device or underline in your Bible, or if you're taking notes, and you know what, people that take notes really go to heaven. So if you're taking notes, write this down and put that phrase on there. He says, I will turn aside. I'm going to come back to that. I will turn aside. He saw the bush. It was burning, but it wasn't being consumed. And he said, that looks pretty amazing. I've never seen anything like that before. And he didn't just press on, because we see amazing things all day long and all week long and all month long, don't we? But he just turned aside. I will turn aside. I'll see this amazing sight. Why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside, I need you to hear that. When the Lord saw that he turned aside, God called him out of the bush. Moses, Moses, and he said, here I am. Then he said, don't come near me, take off your sandals, for the place you are standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Many of us in this room are really afraid to look at God, because we're not sure what God's going to say to us. And if we really look at God, if we really turn aside, if we really, really go deep into 21 days of prayer, God may just change your life and change the direction of your life. And you're not sure you want that to happen. So he was afraid. Verse 7, the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt. I've heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings. I've come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of the land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and to the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. And now, behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. Here's verse 10. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. This all happened when Moses thought life was over. Mission was gone. He had no idea God was going to call him from where he was. Listen, the ultimate search of every human being, every person in this room has an ultimate desire, and that's to find the real reason you were created. Why and what am I on earth for? It's not just to breathe. And again, as I said earlier, I want to reiterate, it's not just so that you can go and get a great education, to get a great career, to get a great job, to get a great salary, to buy bread so that you can get energy, to go back and make more money and just keep repeating that cycle of mundane tending sheep over and over and over. Even though we can't always name it, what we have tried to do, especially in this valley that we live in, but it's now all over the world, especially in the Western world, we have tried to fill this with things and stuff and bigger things and more stuff and salary and think that that's going to fulfill it. So what I want to give you today are 3 stages so that it can kind of become a little linear today as it becomes a little bit more organic later in the month. That all of us seem to go through. Moses went through these stages. All of us seem to go through these 3 stages of life to discover our life purpose. But what happens in these stages, we get stuck in them. And we're not sure how to get out of these stages. And hopefully that's what this entire month is going to be, so that we can stop making excuses and we can stop the things that actually take us away from good habits and they become bad habits, and that we can go forward in vision. So the first stage, if you're taking notes, hopefully you are, just write these things down so that you can discuss them and talk about them a little later, or even just think through them a little bit. Because these are the stages that every one of us, none of us are exempt. And when we're trying to find our purpose and we're asking this question, what is it going to take? First stage, it's called self-ascension. I call this ladder climbing. It's when we try to climb the ladder, but when we're climbing the ladder, what we have to determine, and I'm going to say this a couple times a day, is actually who or what is at the top. What's happened in our culture today is that we're at the top. And we're just climbing the ladder to become a better us, your best life now. And we're not even sure why we're climbing the ladder anymore. It's just self-extension. It's going deeper and deeper into who we think we are, and it's almost ignoring who God has breathed in you. And in this ladder climb, we go to school, we go to college, we try to find a career, we begin networking, we start a family. And at this stage, our prayer is usually not, Jesus, what is your will for my life? Our prayer is rather, how can we get Jesus to bless our climb? It's not, show me a new climb. Show me a different mountain. Give me the purpose. It's how can I get Jesus to bless me as I climb what I think I want. So our prayer at this stage is essentially, God, bless me. Bless me. Oh, God, please bless me. And there's all sorts of doctrine that have come out of this. And I don't have time to talk about this, but it's really essentially praying over and over, Jesus, Jesus, I need that promotion. Jesus, Jesus, I will be a better person if you give me that promotion. Jesus, Jesus, I need that date with that girl or that guy. I need to get married. Jesus, if you'll just bless my relationship. Jesus, if you'll just let my business grow, everything will be fine. Just bless me. Everything is about ladder climbing at this stage. The first stage becomes all about self-focus. It becomes all about being self-obsessed. And we are in that very genre today in this culture of the selfie. And that has actually harmed us to the point that we are all so self-obsessed that all we are concerned about is self. And I've read over and over in the last month or two that now in all nonprofits, not just the church, all nonprofits, Red Cross, you name it, the volunteerism has just hit the dirt. They can't find people to come and volunteer. Why? Because we're all so self-obsessed that we don't have time anymore to give to others. And it's become an epidemic. So it's crucial in this stage to answer this huge question, who or what is at the top of that ladder for you? I'm hoping that sometime this month, maybe even today, that you will determine that at the top of that ladder is got to be God. It has to be in order for you to fulfill a life mission, not just a career, but a life purpose. Because if that is something other than God, instead of trying to discover God's will, instead of trying to discover God's purpose for your life, you will just continue to try to get God to fit in and support your climb, not his. Now, there's three driving forces. I'm going to take more time on this first stage than I am the second two, so bear with me, because there's three driving forces in this stage that all of us face. In fact, Jesus faced this stage after his baptism in Matthew 3 as he started his ministry in Matthew 4. These are the forces that every one of us, including Jesus, our Savior, our Lord, faced in order to find purpose, and you're going to have to overcome them, and you're only going to be able to overcome them as you see how Jesus overcame them. So what are they? The first driving force is appetite. Appetite. Well, the right car will fulfill me. The right house will fulfill me. The right whatever is the materialistic stuff. And we know this doesn't truly fulfill us. We've seen people that said and heard them say, this doesn't fulfill you. But Americans still to this day spend more than they make because of this force of appetite. What did Satan say to Jesus in Matthew 4 in that wilderness experience? He said, hey, turn this stone into bread, material. Just turn it into what you need. You need it. What was his response back? You need to understand this as you seek a vision as we go forward this month, and especially turn 21 days into prayer. Jesus said, man shall not live by material things, bread alone, but by what? Every word that comes out of the mouth of God. The second driving force, and we all struggle with this. Every one of us struggles. Some struggle a little bit more, depending on your security level, where you are, is approval. We can do some crazy things to get approval. We can drink more than we should. We can do just crazy things. I can just list them on and on and on in order to get approval. But most of it, in order to get approval, is compromise. Compromise is the very thing that God has breathed inside of you. Satan took Jesus to this temple that was really high, and he said, hey, throw yourself down. God will catch you. The angels will catch you. And then everybody will see that you are the man. You'll be famous. And Jesus said, whatever you do, don't test God. Whatever you do in the climbing of the ladder, don't test God. It's a powerful truth, and you can study that more in Matthew chapter 4. And the third driving force that Jesus actually went through, that we go through in this whole self-ascension, this whole ladder climbing thing, is what I call ambition. Ambition. Satan took Jesus another high place. It was a mountain that he could oversee everything. And he said this, look at all this. Kind of like what you would see if you went up to the mountains and you saw the valley and the city. And he said, look at everything. This is all yours if you will just worship it and me. And this might be where we get stuck the most, because we haven't figured out what worship is or isn't. A lot of us think that worship is just singing. That's just a part of it. This can be yours if you just bow down and worship it. And Jesus said back to him, he said, you need to get out of here, Satan, because the only one worthy of worship is God. Have you determined that in your life? And how do you do that other than singing in a gathering like this? How do you do that? So again, you can study that, because all of that's part of the bless me stage. It's part of the self-rising stage. It's part of the climbing stage that we all are indoctrinated to do. And this is when we begin to rationalize by saying, I know I'm supposed to worship God. I know God's supposed to be at the top of this ladder. I know that. I know that. That's information that I know. And I know that I'm supposed to be worshiping Jesus with all of my heart and all of my soul and all of my strength and all of my mind. That's everything. I know I'm supposed to do that. And there's the rationalization. I'll eventually get to that. I'll eventually put Jesus there, but right now I need to make a living. Right now I need to pay the rent. Right now I need. Bless me, bless me, bless me. And it's a rationalization that has kept so many people from their purpose, from their mission, and it's just walking through life tending sheep, and we're none happy. It's almost a joyless generation that we live in. And it's not the fault of the political system whatsoever. Here's how Jesus addressed our excuses. And I just want to really quick give you this, because will you write this down? In Luke 14, he addresses this rationalization, these excuses. He uses an illustration kind of God throwing a party. That would be awesome, wouldn't it, if God just threw a party? And one day he's going to. But he uses this illustration. He says, you're all invited to participate in the life of his mission on this earth. Every one of you have been given the breath. You've been given a purpose, and you're all invited to participate. But then everyone in Luke 14 started making excuses why they couldn't participate in the party. They made these excuses. One said, hey, wait, I just bought some land. I need to go check it out. I've got some stuff that I need to make sure it's okay. I can't participate. I've got stuff. The other says, I've got some cattle that I just bought, a bunch of them. I need to go and examine them and make sure they're ready for the market because it's what I'm doing. I can't participate. Now the other one said, I just got married, so she's not going to let me. I don't know what that was all about, but I just got married and I can't do it because this is more important than the mission. And at the end of Jesus' illustration, listen to me, every person that was invited didn't participate. None of them participated, yet they were invited. And that leads us to stage 2. Stage 1 is the ladder climb. And some of us, unfortunately, never stop climbing because we haven't figured out, unfortunately, we know it's information, but it hasn't transformed us. We haven't figured out who's up here, who's at the top. So we just keep climbing for ourselves. We just keep wanting more stuff for us. That's why so often, I just got to throw this in at the beginning of the year, so often you hear people who are in charge of nonprofits and churches begging people to give because we don't feel like we have enough for ourselves. We can't give to others. So stage 2 is called, and I couldn't think of a better name. I just knew you would understand this one, but it has nothing to do with age. So can I preface that? It's called the midlife crisis. But it has nothing to do with age, all right? So those of you who are under 30, you can go there. Matter of fact, I know more people now under 35 that have burned out, you know, familiar with that term, that have burned out than any time of my life. This is the midlife crisis. What does this mean? This is when you become sort of disillusioned with tending sheep. You went to school. You thought that this is what you wanted to do. You thought, this is it. I've got it. I've got the mission. God's given me this idea, and God's given me this place, and God's given me this purpose, and you jump into it, but it wasn't what you thought it was, and now you're disillusioned, and you're 35 or you're 45, and you're just thinking, I'm just going to a job, putting one foot in front of the other, and it's not making any difference. It's not fulfilling whatsoever. Thought the job would do it. It's when you got disillusioned, and every day looks the same. That's a sad place to be when every day looks the same. You thought this marriage was the best thing, and it wasn't. And now you're in the second one or third one. You thought this job would do it, and now you're looking for another one. You know, the average person today, because of this whole thing, goes through at least 5 career changes. Not job changes, career changes. Because we're looking for the wrong thing to fulfill us. You can't buy enough hot rods and Harleys to fulfill yourself. Just can't do it. And in this stage, the prayer is no longer bless me, your prayer becomes, help me, Jesus. I'm empty, but I have so much stuff around me. I'm empty. And I just wonder, in a place like this, how many of us, without raising your hands, but just thinking through and contemplating and just putting some introspective, are in that stage today? Because as I said, this is not an age thing. This is a fulfillment thing. And unfortunately, what happens is we just go from stage 1 to stage 2, back to stage 1, back to stage 2, back to stage 1, and we just keep jumping. We never know how to get to stage 3. And it's my prayer today that you walk out of this place ready to go and looking forward to this month that we're going to produce vision and purpose and life mission for you and for this church and for this community and for South San Jose and abroad. It's almost impossible for me not to just throw out some of the things that we've been praying about as a leadership team for 2 or 3 months now. We've been getting away and talking and thinking and conflicting and arguing and praying even deeper. What's God put us here for as the Point Church? And I want to tell you so badly today, but I got to lead up to it to the 26th, which is stage 3. And it's my prayer that you walk out of here in this stage today. And it's what we read earlier. It's what I had you underline. It's what I had you write down. Stage 3 is turn aside and see. Stage 3 is when you intentionally, that's a huge word this morning, intentionally, not drift. It's time in 2020 to stop drifting through life, thinking that good things are just going to come. That doesn't happen. It's when you intentionally, you are doing whatever it is, whatever sheep you're tending, whatever job you're going to, whatever life looks like day to day, but you turn aside. You intentionally change the focus of your priority. You intentionally change the order of your priority. You have to think today. You have to go away from here asking yourself, what are my priorities? Is God in every single one of them? Or is he just in 1 or 2? Is he just at the top and I'm at all other 4 stages? You intentionally change the focus of your priorities. Stage 3 is when you really ask this question, what would it take for me to turn aside and see? Because I just want to remind you what Moses said in verse 3. This is amazing. And we see amazing things that God is doing day in and day out and month in and month out and year in and year out. This is a new decade for God to do amazing things. But if you're not careful, you just walk right by it because you're still doing your thing. Because your thing has become more important than his thing. And his thing is to see the world transformed to be more like him. And it starts with you intentionally turning. To turn is to take an intentional step away from the normal routines and to create new patterns with God, to create new habits with God. That's why we are offering and asking you to participate 21 days of intentional prayer to change the habit that you do in the morning, to change the habits that you do in the evening, to change the direction of you so that you can see him burning and yet not consumed. Intentionally turning aside for 21 days starting next week. Intentionally turning aside to say what Moses said when he intentionally turned and saw, wait a minute, I'm standing on holy ground. This is God's place for me, and it's not about me. I love what Jacob said in Genesis 28. You can just write it down as a reference. When he slept with a rock and he saw a ladder and the angels of God was going up and down and God was at the top of the ladder. You may have heard the reference, the Jacob's ladder. But he came away from all that and he said this, surely God was in this place and I never knew it. Did you know you can come into a gathering like this and you can worship and you can hear songs that says that death gives no victory again, and we have victory over death, and the breath came out of his body, and you can just sing that and you can say that with your hands in your pockets, and it means nothing to you anymore because we have become content in the familiar. God is no longer awed because we're in the mundane. And today I'm asking you, I'm challenging you, I'm compelling you to start asking today, right now, what would it take? What would it take for me to change? What would it take for me to follow this life mission? What would it take for me to know that God is in this place and he's with me? He'll never leave me. He'll never forsake me. It doesn't matter where I go and what I do. God is with me, and he's given me purpose, and he's given me a mission, and it's not just to make money. It could be a part of it, but it's probably so you'll give it away, not keep it. Matthew 16, if you try to hang on to your life, you're going to lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you'll save it. That's some pretty powerful words to start off 2020 with. You try to hang on to your life, you just try to hang on to the climb, you'll fall off every time. Or you'll get to the top and realize this really wasn't what I thought it would be. This really wasn't it, and you'll change it. You'll change it. I want to ask you this morning again, what would it take? Which of these three stages are you in right now? The latter, the mundane, midlife crisis, what's this all about? Or are you in that stage where you purposely and intentionally desire or want to ask, God, I want to turn aside and I want to see you in the middle of all this, whatever it takes. See, we have to be careful because sometimes we can go backwards, not forwards. So I'm asking you to make yourself available to the power of the Holy Spirit. I want to close today with one last verse as it comes on the screen. And there's a powerful context around this verse, but I'm just going to give you the verse. And I'd ask you to go back today or this week sometime and look at the context of Isaiah 43 and what the whole writing is about when the writer gets to this verse, when he says in 19, see, I'm about to do something new. I sense that in my spirit with us. I really do. And I want to just transfer that sense to you so badly today. I'm about to do something new, God says. See, I've already begun. Can you see it? Can you see it? See, most of us can't because we're just going straight and we're not willing to intentionally just turn aside and see the new. I will make a pathway through the wilderness, and I will create rivers in the dry wasteland. Would you close your eyes all across this place and just kind of put everything away, but just hang with me for just a moment as the team begins to close with worship. Maybe you're here today and there's just a lot here in this talk that you need to think through and ask yourself, where am I at, God, in this? And am I willing to intentionally turn? Maybe today you're here and you've never, ever intentionally turned to Jesus and give him your entire being, which means giving him your all, your life. Maybe that's you, and it starts simply in the first Sunday of this new year by you saying to him intentionally right now, Jesus, I give you my life. You don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to stand up. You don't have to get onto your knees. It just starts with you saying, Jesus, I intentionally turn from me right now, and I give you my life. I started afresh today. I give you my life. I'm tired of the ladder climbing. I'm tired of all the other stuff. I'm tired of what it's produced and what it's not produced and what I think it should produce. I give you Some of you need to just change the priority of your life today and make that an intentional change, and go home today and take out some paper, take out a notebook, take out a journal, and say, okay, Jesus, I intentionally turn aside right now. No football game, no playoff, no whatever. I need to know what's at the top. What am I climbing for? What's my mission? What is it that you put me here for? And I'm willing to change the climb, whatever that takes. That could change your career. Could change everything. Some of you just need to say, you know what? I'm going to intentionally be a part of 21 days of prayer, no matter what. And I'm going to be here on those Wednesday mornings if my schedule can. I know some of you have to get to work, some of you work early, but some of you can change some things around and just come in your pajamas, come in your robe, come in the things that are comfortable at 6:30 a.m. Wednesday starting January 15th. And take that guide next week when we give it and participate. Turn aside and see. Father God, thank you for this moment today and clarity that you've given us, a new decade, a new year. And we want to do everything, God, to walk in that fulfillment and to walk in that purpose and to walk in that mission and to see what you have for us. Change the direction. Change the priority. Change the purpose. Speak into our lives today, Father. I pray that you help us individually go forward in 2020 in a place, in a way, in a perspective like never before.